Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another scene set in Chronicles of Darkness, Vampire Requiem, a Requiem for London. Tonight, we set our scene with Benjamin Smith, accompanying, or being accompanied by, the Ronin Judge of the movement, Velvet Trescott. Two of them are heading down to the westmost side of London. In fact, hold on a second. They're heading if I can find it on the map. Okay. They're heading to an industrial park on the very edge of London. Filled with all sorts of industrial vehicles and equipment. Vans, trucks, diggers, cranes. And so make your way down to this industrial site. You and Velvet will see.
Before we get to meeting Huo Chao, I want to auspex Velvet, just to get some information.
Of course.
I'll roll my auspex dice. My meaty dice pool. I only got 2 successes. Oh, I forgot. I did get 9 again. Ugh, that was pretty bad. So, 2 questions. Why do you want to be involved in this meeting?
You see the blade that would make up a guillotine. And you see it being held with one hand and a cloth wiping the blood off of it with another. After which, you see it swung.
Ah,
Covering it in blood again.
noted. And then what are your intentions in regards to the reintegration for
In regards to, in regards to the
reintegration effort or reintegration to the domain? There we go. Phrase better.
what's her opinion? Sorry, I didn't quite get the question.
No, what's her intentions for reintegration? Like sort of like why? Why specifically?
Hmm. You. It's actually a difficult question to answer visually.
Yeah, fair.
Hmm. You
You
get a
turn it
pang
over.
of self-importance. You see a dog herding sheep.
Mm-hmm.
You see the heraldry of the various covenants. You see the flag of the Carthians pulled up alongside them, as if it's literally being pulled up like a flag. To stand with them, you feel a sense of frustration. You You see a chessboard being set up. Or rather, you see it being reset.
What was the first bit of that again? It was self-importance, right?
Yeah.
Does it I guess like if I can ask a question about that last bit just to make sure. When the flag's being risen, it isn't like working specifically with the Invictus per se, right?
It's
It's more like
outside of international institutions, there's often flagpoles of every single nation involved.
yeah, it's just more symbology of just the re-entering the domain. I guess if you can answer that question.
You didn't get an exceptional success. You also didn't get a third success. Teehee.
Actually, no, because I have to call it on the roll if I could use either the steadfast condition or the. Actually, fuck. Could I use the steadfast condition here just to get more information?
You have the steadfast condition? How long have you had that?
I got it every time I roll an exceptional on Twist of Fate. I gain steadfast
Oh, nice.
every time.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I could use it on a discipline. And then I also additionally get the Twist of Fate automatic exceptional as well.
Steadfast allows you to treat a failed roll as if you'd rolled a single success. So I'm not sure how it would help.
Oh, oh no! Okay, so I got to confused by this thing. I couldn't use Twist. I don't think I could use Twist of Fate at this point, right?
No, just the fate also applies to mundane checks.
Yeah, it's mundane. Yeah, when it matters for aspects. Anyways, cool, cool, cool. No, that's fine. All right, I will. I will take that as it is, and I will continue walking along kind of quietly.
Okay. Verbal will say as she approaches the site, I'll need to rely on you to do most of the talking. I will. Well, given that I am accompanying you, I need to retain the, at least the pretense.
Of neutrality. I got you. Yeah. No, I'm ready.
I will ensure that the meeting does not descend into pandemonium or violence.
Appreciate it. I'm ready whenever you are.
Shouldn't stop walking.
Yeah. It's fair enough.
Walks towards the two kindred, both having a cigarette out outside the site.
Mm-hmm. Good evening, you two.
Evening. Sabqat will, instead of really saying anything, or take out, sort of take a cigar and put it on just sort of toss it to the ground and step on it. Hey. Who's your friend?
This is Velvet Truscott, Ronin Judge of the Movement.
Ah.
Yeah.
Pleasure to meet you both. Right. Pleasure. You, uh, you wanted to talk. You've been hearing some things.
Yeah,
Not exactly pleasing to the ears.
fair. I guess I'm curious. I think this would be a good place to start. How do you see the Carthians moving forward? Like, how would you do it? Or how would you want to do it?
A free and independent domain can be used as a platform for us to build our strength, engage in targeted acts of sabotage, urban warfare where necessary. And what the elders call a bit of rabble rousing.
Ben will not. He'll turn to Sabqat to see if Sabqat has anything to say.
I'm with Chao. Seize the domain inch by inch. Not through conventional warfare, I mean, tried that. Fucked it up twice. Take care of the real threats to our freedom. Primogen, the Barons, or at least the ones that would prefer we didn't exist. The ones that take our kindred homes, the ones that want to wipe the remnants off the face of the earth. I don't think there's much to be said.
The way that I see it, as somebody who's less aggressive, is that right now it is us versus the rest of the domain, right?
Alright.
Sure, the Crone and the Invictus are in charge, but the Ordo and the Lankea really have no reason not to join in. You feel me? And honestly,
we probably shouldn't have this conversation outside anyway.
Sure, fair enough.
Been walking down the road.
Yeah. Said it isn't. No. There's space to make allies. It just being the Carthians versus the world isn't going to work. And we'd frankly have more leverage to sway public opinion if we were active participants in the domain. You feel me? For example, I have been working a case against Primogen Folks, who has been not only evicting Carthians from their domains in Elings, but Lankea, or the residents of Camden, and the residents of Illingdon, and the residents of Southwark. If it's just by ourselves, it's going to be a lot harder to manage that situation or fight that battle, but I think that by showing some interest in not just our problems, but the problems of the other covenants, it could lead to stronger allies. It would give the Carthians a bit more than just angry rabble rouser. You know what I mean? Hell, it'd give the opinion for other people to see the Carthians and maybe say they want to join them, instead of us just locking ourselves off.
Right. As you have this conversation, he walks down the road, round a row of buildings, takes out some keys, opens the door to what appears to be a chippy.
Mhm.
Um, as he walks in, he turns on the lights, and you appear to be in the back kitchen.
Nice.
So is this what this is about? The opinions of other covenants?
I think it would be foolish to think that us by ourselves would be able to achieve our own ends. It's honestly, I don't think this is a war of bloodshed anymore. It's a war of public opinion, of hearts and mind, getting people to favor the Carthians. And I don't think isolating ourselves here is the effective way to do that. If you honestly, if you have any other thoughts, please share. We're putting the whole barony thing to a revote. So honestly, if you have any other particular thoughts or opinions, feel free to share them with me. Or even if you want, I'll see if I can get you into that meeting.
Yeah, I have a question. What the fuck? And Char just goes, cat chill. The other covenants didn't help us before, Benjamin. What makes you think they're going to help us now? Might not like to hear it, but the Carthians have always been on their own in London, whether they liked it or not. We've never had any help. And the other covenants have plenty of opportunities to give us that help. Many of them knew how bad things were out there and still didn't. It was easier for them to save their own fucking hides.
Can I roll intelligence politics real quick just to see if Huo Chao is correct in his statement, or if there's actually examples that I could point to? Because if I remember correctly, the Crone were our nominal allies for a while.
Roll
Just got it.
me intelligence politics.
I am going to spend a willpower here because my intelligence politics roll is surprisingly low for somebody who asks to roll it as much as I do. I got 3 successes. That's pretty good.
Okay. Funny enough, you do remember at the very start of the conflict 10 years ago, the Sanctified were actually on the Carthian side. In fact, they're the ones that more or less instigated the whole conflict. Although they ended up retaining their neutrality in the end. But for a while, it did look like a sanctified Carthian alliance may have actually gone somewhere. Uh, you're not entirely sure why things went south there. Might have been a combination of Verve going off the rails and sanctified internal politics, but you don't really know what those internal politics were, and the sanctified never really commented that much on Verve either. As for the circle, there's always been a significant portion of the circle that's been sympathetic to the Carthians, and that hasn't gone away, but the circle is even more individualistic than the Carthians. They tend to they do tend to unify more easily than the movement, from what you've seen. But to put it in political terms, given that this is a politics check, they tend to only do so in major flashpoints. They're not like the Carthians where they'll get together over minutiae or some small issue. But they will move as one on matters of domain war or survival. Whereas, funnily enough, the Carthians seem to struggle more on those issues. The other Covenants seem to struggle more on that, but the Cranes seem to have more of a stronger survival instinct as a Covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Circle seems somewhat split to you, particularly now that the Circle are co-ruling with the Invictors. There's a lot more support for the Invictors within the Circle. So you're not sure.
Yeah.
You reckon it would split the Circle down the middle.
Interesting.
Or at least there would be a divide. In what
Right.
direction the Circle will go, you're not sure, but once it's made this decision, it will all move in that direction.
Okay. And then, I guess, if this is possible to answer with this politics role, is there anything that, like, outside of the whole Free State effectively isolating us in the past? Has there been anything about Carthian politic maneuvering that kept the other covenants from wanting to effectively ally ourselves? You know what I mean? Or at least assist, right?
Let me another politics check.
Fair enough. I'm not going to spend a willpower on this one because I need to. There will most likely be a persuasion roll I need to make at some point.
Yeah.
There are successes.
Okay. Can't really speak to why the other covenants wouldn't align with you other than what they've publicly stated and what's immediately obvious.
Yeah.
We'll start with. That said, there are some obvious facts, so we'll start with the Circle.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Circle is now in co-rulership with the Invictus. This presents an immediate obstacle. It's no longer in the Circle's interest to really work with you.
Mm.
Maybe even if there was some crisis point that caused the relations to freeze over. I still don't necessarily have much of a motive to choose the Carthians over the Invictus. It should also be noted the Circle are one of the oldest covenants within the domain.
Mm-hmm.
If relations were to freeze over, it's more likely they just try and pursue power on their own. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, as for the Invictus, well, that goes without saying.
Diametrically opposed foes.
Yes, there are domains that exist where the two work together, but it's usually in very unconventional ways.
Hmm.
For the most part, they're enemies, and that won't change in the domain anytime soon.
Hmm.
They are the tower you're trying to topple. The Sanctified have had positive relations with the Carthians for some time, and relations with the two factions have actually warmed over the years, funnily enough.
Hmm.
The Circle's prominence gives the Sanctified a nominal reason to work with the movement. Their own enemies are in power, and they have always been prominent within the domain. The Sanctified do have a benefit from political neutrality to a degree. They do not wish to anger the Invictus. They are, after all, the sanctum of all kindred, not just the Carthians.
Hmm.
And the Invictus do have a long history of working with, being aligned with the Sanctified, although that is much more subdued in this domain.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the Ordo, well, if there is a political group of kindred that could be considered apolitical or politically completely neutral, be the Ordo. They'll work for whoever gives them the most opportunities for their own ends. What those ends are, well, it's the Ordo.
Yeah.
They're more interested in their own agenda. However, that does give you an opening in that they're not interested in control. They're not your enemy. And the Sanctified are potential allies. If you can convince them you're worth the effort.
Already working on that. Hell yeah. Okay. So then well, over the years, at least the Sanctified have warmed to the Carthians, and I have been forthright with Bishop Aurelia Python about the situation with folks. So, at least in that sense, the Sanctified and the Carthians can be aligned on some level. And well, the Order are the Order. They'll they don't really care about politics. They just want to meet their own ends. So,
They'll
for as
fight for the
much as
highest bidder, is what they'll do.
yeah, yeah. Listen, I'm not saying that I have the greatest opinion of the Ordo. I'm just saying that it's an option.
Yeah, but can you outspend the Invictus?
True, but I don't think Stanford under Stanford's rule they are interested as much in the Ordo, considering everything that's happened.
You think they won't pull that trigger if survival's on the line, though? Hell, I don't even know if we can outspend the circle of how things are right now.
Yeah. I mean, also by locking ourselves off, we don't really. It just becomes us versus them, you know, the rest of the domain versus us. And for as free as we are, Sheriff can walk in and just cap a Carthian if they want, under the pretense of the law.
Hmm. I don't think that's
It,
necessarily true. There are sanctified and circle kindred here and there. Not many order, no order as far as I know. Certainly no fucking Invictus.
no,
It's not like we're devoid of other covenants here.
what I'm saying is we're not. They have to be interested in us to begin with, but you'd have to be interested in effectively isolating yourself. You know what I mean? Is that the benefit of the Free State is that we have the capacity to basically police ourselves, right? We're not within our bounds, we're not subject to a sheriff
Well,
necessarily.
that's the
What?
problem then. We can police ourselves, but what you're asking us to do is give that up. And then what happens to us?
That point?
No place for guillotines in the domain. We'll be lucky if we're not all rounded up and sent off to whatever new detention facility the Invictus have cooked up for us. Archons and the princes and forces will come into the domain. What autonomy will we have left? You're giving up freedom for power. But I get it. Don't get me wrong, I do. Because War Kindred hasn't given up freedom for power. But the point of our movement is that we're the alternative to that. We put our own beliefs ahead of personal gain. That's the basis of the movement. That's what makes it worth fighting for at all. It's what draws Kindred to it. Because they're sick and tired of having to fight over scraps. Or sell out their souls for money and bodies and God knows what else.
I mean, can we properly express that message if we split ourselves from the rest of the domain?
But can you do it if you contradict it?
It's a fair point. Seems like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. I just think it's worth to try. We'd have more opportunities to convey that to other kindred if we're part of the domain.
Right. As an aside,
That's
you'll just sort of look at Velvet.
yeah.
You haven't said much. What's your take on this? Velvet will straighten up a little bit. If you want my personal opinion, I don't consider it my purpose here. I am only here to observe and arbitrate and ensure the discussion is productive. But if that is what you are asking for, it is. I believe the idea of reintegration holds merit. there have already been moves made on the proverbial chessboard to ensure that we retain some degree of autonomy, simply under a different paradigm, not one that is ideal, but we are not working under ideal circumstances. The simple fact of the matter is that the movement has not been able to make progress as is. And ultimately, whether we like it or not, regardless of whatever we believe in, we exist on said proverbial chessboard. We can move ourselves, or we can be moved, or we can wait for our enemies to keep taking turns until we are all out of pieces. I believe such a decision holds weight if only for the reason that it will throw off our enemies. They wouldn't expect us to approach them with an olive branch. They're so used to conflict with us. They won't know what to do with the idea of peace or the cooperation. I think that is how we've maintained as many concessions as we have already. And negotiations have not even begun. It is a game, and I understand it is not one either of you like playing. But still. We are players whether we like it or not. And I certainly don't intend on remaining a piece. That still doesn't solve the problem of what happens with us, though. What do we do as the Guillotines? You can play all the political games you like, but at the end of the day, a revolution only ends one way. Who's going to see it through? And who's going to protect us? Because to be honest, outside of you, Ben, I've heard from Chow that you at least spoke with us. Nobody else on the council exactly did. Why should we trust them? I can throw this judge about as far as I can throw the king, and he's a fucking traitor. Robert frowns at that. You can see her, this entire time her fingers have been, her hands have sort of been steepled together. Sort of clasped together. And Sabqat says that. Face grows a little bit tense.
I'll notice me. Yeah.
If it's all the games you say, then who's to say you are not playing us right now? It's not just a bunch of covenants versus covenants, is it? It's not how it works. It's not how it's ever worked.
Trust me. I wouldn't. I'm not here because I want to play you. Hell, the other. I'm trying to extend this to you because I don't know. I at some point we all have to say we fucked up, and I can admit to how everything went down 10 years was fucked up. I fucked up. We all basically just ate each other alive. I actually don't want to see that happen again. It's why I want to come to you and talk to you. This is why I want your input and why I will go to the rest of the counselors and call them a dipshit if I need to. It's that's why I see this. You know, I understand that the way that I go about things is very anti-guillotine, but I respect the way that you view things. One needs the other, right? You need somebody to tell the somebody who's a bit more reserved, a bit more pulled back, to go out there and do something about it. And sometimes people just need to be reined in. That you need to take a moment to stop and think. You know, that's how I see this. You know, uh, it's not necessarily the greatest framing, but look, I'll be nothing but honest with you. And nothing, if not nothing, honest with you. I think I misphrased that. As long as I want to be honest with you. Because for whatever anybody else can say, I don't think you being removed, you know, final death, locked up, is a good trade. I think you have a right to be here like everybody else, and I will stand on that council in front of in front of all the rest of the Carthians, and you know, I do it. We all have to. I don't know. I think we all have to take a look at what we've done from the end of the war on and try and sort that mess out. But we aren't going to do this by just digging in our heels and saying that, well, we were right. We were wholly right. You know, if we are going to take down any level of kindred, either by targeted strikes or skilled negotiation, we need to be together as a whole. We can't be split. Not like this. And it may be 10 years too late, but it's better to fix something 10 years too late than not at all. And I'm sorry I didn't step up and do it sooner.
Okay, well, if you're willing to help us out, then help us out. How is this going to help us? I don't mean help you or the Carthians, I mean the Guillotines. How are you going to keep us from getting all dusted by several angry sheriffs later down the line? How are we expected to help the movement from this position? Because I don't see it happening. And you said you wanted to step up, so tell us what the deal is.
how to do this, you can't just go around like marauders. That's my first thought. To not think that some things can't be solved with violence is stupid. Not all things, but some things definitely can. Can I? Shit, my brain is smooth. Could I?
Yeah, it is.
Shut up. Shut up, Chris. Can I fucking roll?
Teehee.
Hee hee. Me puts a good speech out there. You to he smooth.
The future is mobile.
Future is mobile. You are correct. Can I roll like a quick int politics about the guillotines? Just sort of perspective right now. Or at least how they're perceived by the rest of the domain.
How who's perceived by the rest of the domain?
The guillotines, because that was part of the question.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I'm assuming Streetwise won't sub for this.
No, but if you're looking for good speeches,
What? No,
if
if you're looking for speeches,
you're looking for good speeches,
I could roll Streetwise. Find
for
something. Got a success. Better than last time.
okay, what's a streetwise or politics check?
This is politics about the guillotines.
Okay. Unsurprisingly, nobody likes him. They're the domain's black sheep. Every conflict has its losers. And the guillotines are the losers of London. They're thrown under the bus by their own sect. And even if they won, they still probably wouldn't be liked. They're violent rioters at best. Many are viewed as blood-crazed lunatics at worst. They did not have many friends. They don't have a tight-knit and organised. So, sometimes they can leverage the modicum of fear that might rise above the hatred. Most of the time, they are simply hated and not feared. They're uh, not exactly a vital tool towards building bridges of the rest of the domain. In fact, they may very well be a wrench if they're publicly supported.
Then perhaps it would just be a matter of dropping it. You know, sort of at least more publicly step away from it. would at least help.
What are you talking about?
Step away from at least the moniker of being a guillotine, which I get is hard, a very hard sell. But like, you know,
The Carthians already killed my sire twice. I don't need her killed for a third time.
yeah.
It's the only thing she has left. Seriously asking me to bury her again?
It was just an option that came to mind. I'm thinking on the spot here. Hence why I'm not telling you, I'm asking.
See, the problem here is, Benji, is that you're still asking us what we can do and not telling us what you can do for us. I'm hearing a lot of, you could do this, you should do this, you should do that. But if we were willing to do all of that to protect ourselves, don't you think we would have already done it?
Uh,
Selling out's easy.
could be possible during the negotiations to, at the very least, since the conflict is over, basically just make sure there's a statute saying that they can't just come in here and kill you for no reason. I'd negotiate that. I wouldn't think it's fair for you all to just be killed for sins that have long since been buried. Or at least long since passed.
Movement's fucked us over enough times. We want guarantees. Then we'll consider abiding by whatever ridiculous rules the Invictus and their circle decide to force upon you.
Alright.
And we're still guillotines, we're not just gonna sit there and go quietly into the night.
Alright. And I'll nod. Also, Chris, quick out of character question now. Just to make sure I heard you right. Did Huo Chao want something hard now, or just make sure that there was something hard to give him?
I'm not really sure what the guillotines would do if you backstabbed them. Probably something extremely violent.
No, I mean, what I meant is that was he looking for something right now, or like if I negotiate on behalf of just being like, hey, you can't just come in here and kill these people. Like,
Yeah.
come on, let's be civil.
He wants something. how to say, um, yeah, he wants something not not tangible in the sense of material, but he doesn't want to believe you'll fight for him. He wants to know he'll be protected. If you know what I mean. He wants to know the Guillotines will be protected in the event that the main reintegrates. In other words, he's effectively saying, make this a pivotal part of the negotiations, and don't budge on it. Make it one of your lines in the sand, as it were. Of course, how you implement that is the tricky part. You'll need the Invictus and the Circle to agree jointly, probably.
Hmm.
Um, Depends on how they decide to work things. Perhaps more accurately, you'll need the King and the Queen to agree.
Hmm. That'll
And you
be
don't
interesting.
necessarily want to give off the impression that you're giving the Guillotine special protections. That would also go down poorly with just about the entire domain.
Yeah, I think I can negotiate that. I think that can be my line in the sand. Sure, I can.
Once you got a guarantee from the council that that's the case, consider us to have an agreement. I don't really need to say to anyone here what happens if we go back on our word.
Oh, I know.
No point
I know.
wasting our time with threats and promises. We're all adults here. We all know what will happen.
Yep.
So don't.
Yep, yep. If there was anything else either one of you wanted to say, now would be the time, I guess. Just in general.
Don't fuck this up for us.
What?
Oh, Sabqat just says, don't fuck this up for us.
I will try my best not to.
Don't try, you won't.
Uh,
You
you're
won't
fair. I
fuck it
won't
up.
fuck this up. I won't fuck it up.
Huh. I think this has been a very conductive conversation. I thank you all for having Benjamin and I understand that movement has been very unkind to the Guillotines. Your apprehension is warranted. Were I in your position, I would likely be reacting in the same way. And I will say this, as one that has been a member of the Carthians for over a century, I have been in that position more than once. Hopefully, we shall not repeat history. is, if that is all, I believe we can leave this place. She sort of just looks around, like sort of her eyes just sort of glance around the kitchen, just not particularly impressed with the locale. You see that Sabqat, she's actually been leaning against an oven, and it's sort of slowly dented as she leaned on it more, as she's leaned on it more and more. Clearly, having some difficulty controlling her temper.
Mm.
All right. I think we're done here.
Yeah.
I'll open up the door for you. I assume
Mm.
you walk out of the door.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry,
of
Chris.
the
Jesus.
of the chippy.
Yeah,
As someone.
yeah. I'll walk out of the chippy.
Is there anything you'd like to say to Velvet as you leave with her?
How do you think that went? We'll sort of quirk an eyebrow at her.
Figuring out some means of protection for the guillotines would be difficult. What we need less, I think, is a way to protect them, and more a way to direct them so that they don't dig their own graves. Providing them with protections will only split the movement further. Public knowledge of such a thing may even turn the domain against us. I've spoken with other kindred, other covenant leaders. They are not a popular group, Benjamin.
I understand.
That said, I have no desire to turn them into their enemies, far from it. They're still Carthians, but their prior recklessness has impeded progress.
Yes. I was
Perhaps
thinking when.
protections for the movement as a whole, and then a word and message sent to the guillotines not to push their luck. Perhaps place them under the sway of another that can be trusted to push them in the correct direction.
Mm.
And one that has the power to rein them in when necessary. Huo Chao seems sensible enough that he knows not to push too far still. He's a lifelong guillotine. He's still acting within their mentality. They need some sort of oversight
Yeah,
if they are to be put to any use.
yeah. We're on the same page there.
Otherwise, well, It'd be simpler for us to put them to the sword than have their enemies come and take them for us. That is something we'll have to figure out before negotiations.
Yeah.
We need a way to
I was
restrain them.
thinking of a way of protections. We could argue that because of the war, there could still be some particular feelings on both sides, and that the Carthians should be given the same respect, or at least be given the same level of, not necessarily protections, but acceptance as something like House Blacktomb getting reintegrated back into the Invictus. The president's already set, and one of them is already a member of the Primogen Council. Don't think it's the worst idea.
We will discuss the matter further later. Right now, at least we have guaranteed the guillotines will not gate crash the negotiations. It's the last thing we need.
Yes.
If they feel betrayed after the fact, well, it is a shame.
There's only so many chances anybody can give. Hell, even I'll give. So, even though even my own admission can be a bit more accepting and forgiving than most. I think, anyways. Else.
I don't think there's much else to take away from this.
Yeah. Can I roll a wits insight check against Trescott real quick?
Sure. Or with sympathy, you mean?
It's empathy, yeah, whatever. Right? That's the fine. How the fuck did I get 0? What?
What can we say? She is a mystery.
You say she is a Mr. Me, I'm like, do we just auspex her again? I feel like that's like I choked out by the elder.
All we've done is secure the short-term problem, or resolve the short-term problem of the guillotines stepping out of line in regards to our new vision for the movement.
Mm.
There is still the long-term problem of directing their actions to our benefit.
Right. Mm.
There's still very much a political anchor around our neck.
Yeah.
I will speak of the rest of the council on this. See how we should approach this issue further.
Yeah.
The outcome of our reintegration should also provide us with an indicator on how we should move forward.
Yeah.
Let's just hope Sheriff Sully does not end up ashing any guillotines before we have the opportunity to rein them in.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. It wouldn't be good for either the movement as a whole or image. The image of the movement.
No. And that is paramount right now.
Yes.
But if that is all,
I actually did have one final question. How did you feel about what Audrey was talking about the other night? I'm just curious.
she is like many young idealists in that she has some good ideas and many more bad ones. That she should not be the person to implement them.
Mm.
The art of stitching together ideology with reality is very complicated. Contrary to popular thought, ideologues seldom make good leaders. Often, they make tragic ones.
Mm.
Far be it from a Deva to call for temperance, but
Mm.
the Council, and I believe future Baron, will be in a far better position and of a far better mind to implement the more meritable concepts that she put forward.
Yes.
The idea of making anything of the guillotines at all, I would not have considered it if it were not for her suggestion.
Yep.
But she is also in a poor position to do so.
All that.
Something for her betters to take care of, I think.
Yeah.
Or at least a calmer hand. Steady hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Mental nod, thinking to himself. Thank you for your time, Velvet. I appreciate you moderating that discussion.
I did little more than observe. You carried most of it.
Mm.
But I shall leave you to your thoughts. You appear to be distracted.
Yes. I have a bunch of other spinning plates to return to, so.
Don't we all?
Yes. Don't we all?
I wish
I
you a
bid you good
pleasant
evening.
evening.
And to you as well. He'll sort of nod and head off in his own direction.
And that is where we shall end this scene. Thank you, Player for Play. Thank you, watchers, for watching. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye.